just trying to hear you. We should be good. You guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I'm sure by now all of you know who I am, but I'm Ashtyn. I'm Pastor's new favorite. So I'm gonna have you guys go ahead and turn to Romans chapter 5 with me. Romans chapter 5. So we're going to be reading Romans chapter 5 and verse 5. Romans 5:5. And hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us. Now, those of you who have met me before I came this time, I know some of you I didn't get to meet before, but I think I've been to this church. And my second message that I preached was very, it was like a lecture basically. I like science. I'm a science nerd. And tonight I'll incorporate a little bit of that, but it'll be a lot simpler tonight. I don't have slides for you to show all my scientific stuff, but I want to talk about bubbles. Bubbles are made up of water with a thin layer of soap that covers the entire outside of the bubble. Let's see. When light shines on a bubble, it bounces around the layer of soap and air, and some of it reflects back to our eyes. So you have water, and then you have a thin layer. It's kind of like a vacuum. And I'm not talking about the kind of vacuum that you clean the floor with. I mean the kind of vacuum where there's nothing there. There's no air. There's no molecules. Nothing is moving. It's like space. Space is a vacuum. There's nothing. There's no air or any kind of friction inside of space. So you have that water, and then you have that space of nothing, and then you have the soap. And so when the light goes through the soap, and it hits the water, and then it hits the soap, and it hits the water, and it goes back and forth, and it creates a rainbow. So you can get that same exact effect if you take two pieces of glass, and you get a vacuum, you put them in a vacuum seal, and you squeeze them together. It'll make a rainbow on that glass. So it's because it's creating that thin layer of nothing that's in between those two pieces of glass. So you could say that a thin layer of nothing is colorful if you apply the right kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Now, much like in my example, you can take your life and you can give it to God, and He'll make your thin layer of nothing colorful. We all have had or do have a thin layer of nothing. We all have that hole inside of our hearts. We call it the God-sized hole that only God can fill. So many times we try to fill it with things that the world has to offer, when really we have that one thing, which is God, that is big enough to fill the hole.
Right.
And in this verse it says, the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts. God, He will fill up our whole heart, our entire nothing, our entire layer of nothing, and He will make it colorful.
Right.
And I know I'm only 18, but I can tell you for certain that I've had many layers of nothing in my life. I've had one after another. And tonight I'd like to give you my testimony and how I want to use that to help other people. So I guess we go all the way back to my birth. I wasn't a planned birth. My parents, they were young and irresponsible, and they didn't plan me. They met at a party, and I actually can't remember a time that my parents were ever together. They were legally separated for about 2 or 3 years, and so I just lived with my dad. I hardly ever visited my mom. She was drinking all the time and just wasn't able to take care of me. So my dad was also not glamorous either when it was just me and him. I know that there are many things that he regrets that he did to me or had done during the time that it was just me and him. But at the time he was a police officer, so I spent a lot of time at the police department. And that's actually where he met my mom, Sarah, who all of you guys got to meet when my family was here with me. A lot of people don't realize that that's my stepmom, because I don't treat her like one, and she doesn't treat me like her stepson. She's been there for me my entire life, and I'm extremely thankful for her.
Amen.
to tell people that my parents met in jail. I want to tell them that my dad was a police officer. My mom, she was a nurse at the jail there, and so that's where they met. But they go, oh, your parents met in jail, that's crazy. And so after they met up and they had been dating for a little bit, my parents officially got divorced, and that's when they had to have a real custody agreement for my mom. And there were multiple times where my mom wanted to just sign some papers to give up custody to my dad. And you don't really hear of stories like this often, but my dad actually fought to make sure that my mom had custody of me every so often. And it's because of that choice that I really know who my mom is today. My mom, Sarah, who was here, she moved in with my dad before they got married. And it's a little weird that I can remember my parents' wedding. I was only 3 years old. I remember a little bit from when it was just me and my dad, even though I was only, the first 3 years of my life that I was with my dad. I still remember being with him, and I remember situations that weren't the best that I could have been in, or times that I was hurt by family members, whether that's physically or even mentally. But they decided that they wanted to start going back to church when they got married. And that's really when I can remember very vividly. I can remember when my mom came into my life, and that's as far back as I can remember, like, very well. And I remember when I first started going to church, I fell in love with church immediately. I think I was about 4 at the time when we started going to church. Everything was just so new, and the people were nice. I wasn't used to being around really nice people. Most of the adults that I was around were always drunk or high, and so I wasn't around these people. My Sunday school teachers were all nice to me, and they knew my name, and I was hearing all these stories from the Bible and about somebody who created us. I didn't know about that at all. But as time went on, I was just going to church for my friends, and I didn't have a real relationship with God. And I was little at that time, but even up until my freshman year of high school, I didn't have a relationship with God. And because of that, I struggled a lot with feeling like I was a mistake in this world, just because of the fact that my birth was not planned. And anybody who, especially my parents, trying to tell me that wasn't true, just made me feel like I was being lied to, like they were trying to soften the blow. I was 7 when I accepted the Lord as my Savior, and life was kind of as good as it could get once I got saved. I started praying for my biological mom and for my stepdad that they would get saved and start going to church, and I've been praying for them ever since. Let's see. Sorry. Life, as I said, life was as good as it could be. I got saved. I was in church. I had good friends. My mom got remarried, and she had a daughter, and she still wasn't a Christian at the time, but she got her life on a better track than it was at already, so that she could be there for my little sister in ways that she couldn't be there for me. None of my friends actually knew that I had a split family. I never told anyone. The only time that anybody ever found out was when I went to California to go visit my mom, and that's where she lived during the time that I had really close friends at church. But the only time that they would ever find out is when I went to go visit, and they would ask my parents, "Oh, where's Ashtyn?" And I'd be like, "Oh, he's visiting his mom." But I was talking to an old friend, and this was someone who I felt like I could talk to, because I'd never actually verbally spoken about any of this before. I'd spoken to my parents about it just a little bit, but I never felt like it was something I could talk about. And after I told my friend all of this, he actually agreed with me that I was a mistake and that I wasn't supposed to be here. And that comment kind of came so far out of left field that, I thought it had to be true, because this was somebody who I trusted, who actually agreed with me, and I didn't feel like he was lying to me. But it still really hurt. And we're not friends today, but I do pray for him. So after that, I slowly started to fall back into this place where I just felt like anything I did had a horrible effect on the world, or whatever I did couldn't possibly have a good effect. I never got a sense of achievement from anything that I did. You mow the lawn and you look out at the lawn and you say, look at what I did. I mean, and it wasn't even that I was focusing on any mistakes. I just wasn't happy that I did it. I was kind of emotionally detached. I wasn't sad. I didn't feel sad. I wasn't happy. I was just here. I was just kind of going along with emotions, especially with being in church. I can't remember a single message from high school in town. Nothing stuck. I remember one, and it was a testimony of a man who, his testimony was it was really crazy. Dr. Sam Gipp, he's a huge preacher he's an evangelist who's huge for the King James Bible. And so I recommend that any of you guys go listen to him. He's got lots of sermons on YouTube. Also, my whole life I've struggled with sleep. I have insomnia, and I also have night terrors, chronic night terrors, and also possibly parasomnia. So I have an overactive brain, and so I'll lay in bed and I'll just think about everything all at once. The way I explain it to people is if you have a movie theater screen, and then you have multiple movie theater screens behind that one. I can bring one to the forefront, but I'm still trying to focus on everything else in the background. And so I deal with that a lot when I'm trying to sleep. And when I finally do fall asleep, then I wake up from a nightmare and I'm too scared to fall back asleep. And as I was falling back into this mindset, my nightmares were getting worse. And there was a point where I didn't sleep for about 3 days because I would keep myself up because I was so scared. And since then, it actually hasn't gotten better. And in fact, it's gotten a little bit worse. But I'm going to come back to that in a minute. One night, I was riding my bike home, and somebody grabbed my backpack and pulled me off my bike. And they were trying to steal my backpack. I don't know who it was or why he thought I had some stuff in my backpack. I mean, it was basically empty. But out of self-defense, I really hurt him, and I most likely sent him to the hospital for a broken nose and stitches in his leg. And I was only about, I think, 13 or 14 at the time. And I got home and I felt incredibly guilty. I was really guilty about something that I couldn't help. He pulled a knife on me and I could have died, or I could have gotten severely injured, but I didn't really care. I cared a lot more about other people than I did myself, and the fact that I hurt somebody that badly weighed down on me a lot. So not only did I feel guilty, but I really hated myself. And we hear about a lot of teenagers who grow up and they're just in this mindset where they really hate themselves. And a lot of the time, it's just teenagers being teenagers, hormones and things of that nature. But this was a little bit different. I really had a morbid hatred for myself. The only real prayer that I ever prayed to God for about 5 years was that He would just take me in my sleep. And I would wake up every morning angry that I was still alive. I have a poem that I wrote. It's a fairly long poem. And I wrote it after I came out of my depression. And it's about a man who loses his wife. And he feels guilty that it happened to her. I'll go ahead and read it to you real quick. Starts like, every breath I blew, and every hour of the day I slew, every minute and every second, every single day, I knew it shouldn't have happened this way. It shouldn't have, but it did. Spilled like a bottle without a lid. the blood. Well, not just the blood. Maybe it was my emotions of the moment. My sadness spilled out and covered the world, letting me roam it. It spilled and it swirled around, creating a pit so deep I could never come out, keeping me in the guilt of what I've done. The hole never getting deeper, but a hand being held just far enough away, so I'll never reach it. My eyes strain now, even now, as I watch the kids play, the little ones singing up to the old, the ones never born, never had a mother's hand to hold. And I know it shouldn't have happened this way, but it did. Spilled like a bottle without a lid. The memories of memories never yet to come, they flood through my head, tears falling like I'm a kid. Happiness is just above the edge of my hole. The hand's still reaching out, it's touching my head. It's okay, Ted. When I look up over the edge, she's there in heaven, just like God said. The hand is still there, reminding me it came out of nowhere. She's right, I know, but more tears fill my eyes, but I was almost there. When the bullet zipped through the air, when dread filled the skies, it isn't fair. It's a whisper, but it's there. Again, I whimper and cry, but she thinks it's good to be gone. Why? Because it's wonderful, and only God lights the sky. The hand is gone, but my own is rising to the edge. And now I know that I was able to reach it all along. The hole of my sadness, deep in the ground, no longer my hole. Then there's the shovel I found, and into the dirt it goes. And into the hole goes the dirt. It covers the ground deep below, covering all my hurt, all my pain, all my pity, every stain in every city of grief that I built for myself. The hole now just flat ground. I lean over and pack it down. But before I leave, I grab a handful of dirt and take a short moment to grieve. I stand up and put it in my pocket, so I never forget how she and God helped me clear my stubble. And lastly, I lay down the shovel. I lay it down for someone else who may need it to clear their own rubble. I no longer need my own, because when I get lost, I now have the hand of God to lead me home. And I know it shouldn't have happened this way, but it did, just like a bottle without a lid. These thoughts that will never rid, that will stay with me until I join her. The thoughts that I always hid, kept quieter than a cat's purr. The thought that this was my fault, that I brought her here to die, that I could have stopped her body from hitting the asphalt. Thoughts of questions with the only answer being why. They may have never gone, but they may never be gone, but they're no longer in my head. God took them out, along with all my dread, and every doubt, every tear I shed, and every shout of joy, every shout of pain, and every shout for my baby boy. And I know it had to happen this way. It did. Like God's full glory never covered or hid. It's good for her to be gone, and I no longer feel alone, because I still feel her hand. It's touching my head and leading me home. It's a very personal poem to me, and I've actually been able to use it to help other people. I know 3 people that I was able to help who had suicidal thoughts. Just from hearing this poem, I decided that they weren't going to go through with it. And also my stepdad, who is living up in Idaho, he never was a religious man, never was a Christian man, didn't like the idea of me bringing up God. And I read this poem to him, and it was something switched in him, and he was extremely impressed, but also loved the message of the story, and it was something I never expected. So I praise God that I was able to write that. But that story is what happened to me. I was inside of this hole that God had given me the power to get out of, but I pushed him to the side, and I was like, no, I got this. And I didn't got this. I didn't have it at all. I wanted it. I wanted so badly for someone to listen to me, but when I had the chance to say something, that friend that I told you about would always come back up in my head. I couldn't believe that anyone would help me or would want to listen to what I had to say, and I had zero relationship with God. I thought I did, but I had no direction. One of my favorite quotes is that a directionless Christian is a stagnant one. I was 100% directionless, and I was 100% stagnant. I was moving in all different directions, yet I wasn't actually going anywhere. I was just walking in a circle. Well, back only about 3 years ago, I made a friend, and a really good friend. We're best friends to this day. After after about a year of being friends, I finally began telling them all the things that had been weighing me down. And little by little, they helped me to realize that none of these things were actually true. And it helped me revitalize my relationship with God. Around this time, I started going to Homeland Baptist Church in Midland, where I met Bro A. And that's when I went to the youth group with Pastor Anthony here. Some of you might remember the first time that I was here, and I preached a message to you guys called The Chosen Devil. That was a longer version of a message that I preached at Homeland. It was only about 3 minutes long, and then when I preached it here, it was a full-length message. But that was the message that Pastor Anthony listened to. He heard it, and he saw that I had potential, that there was something in me that I could really help people. And that's all I really ever wanted to do my entire life. Well, I guess my time is up. And after that, he really helped me to take my relationship further than I thought I could with God. And this friend that I was telling you about is kind of crazy because neither one of us had a real relationship with God. And we were both kind of in the same situation, different forms of depression. And we ended up helping build each other up. And, that's what happens when you try to put God in the center of a relationship with anybody. No matter what, if God is in the center of that relationship, you will grow. I have grown so much spiritually, and I've grown even more as a person. I was not a pleasant person to be around for a long time. I was that person who would lie about the stupidest thing just to make you think that you would like me. It's like, oh, have you seen that Lego set? And I don't know what Lego set you're talking about. But they're like, yeah, I know that Lego set. And everybody knew. I wasn't fooling anybody. But I was fooling myself. I really thought that I was okay and that I had friends. Most of my friends from Idaho, because I moved here from Idaho about 3.5 years ago. Most of my friends I don't even talk to anymore because we weren't really friends. It was they were very surface level relationships because I didn't have a relationship with God, and so God wasn't in the center of any of my relationships. People in the world can see that I'm different from them. I've had a job since I was 14. That was when I got my first job, and then I've had multiple jobs since then. But I can really see the difference between how my coworkers treated me before and after. I had a really real relationship with God. Without me asking them to, people won't cuss around me. They won't say the Lord's name in vain. They'll say some bad word and go, "Oh no, I'm sorry," and that's just because I can revert any conversation back to the Bible, and it's not something that I have to mentally think about. It's just my first instinct, it can seem boastful, but it brings so much joy into your life when you can bring everything back to God.
Yes.
My entire life story can be brought back to God. Everything that's happened to me happened for a reason, even if I didn't realize why it was happening in the moment. Here recently, my mom and my stepdad, they had a family issue that happened back at home, and it was this summer when I went to go visit them, and it was extremely mentally disheartening, my mom especially. And I remember I was sitting down on the couch and she was telling me all these things and she was bawling. And she's not a Christian, but I just asked if she wanted me to pray for her. And she said yes, and so I grabbed her hand, and my mom's best friend was sitting there next to us. And while I was praying, I could just hear them bawling. And after I was done praying, my mom told me that, weeks later, she told me, while you were talking, I felt this weight weight lifted off of my shoulders. And then as soon as you stopped talking, it came back onto my shoulders. And I've been looking for that feeling ever since. Since I was 7 years old, I've been praying that this would happen.
Amen.
It's terrible that it had to happen like this, that we had to have a huge family issue. But she's at least thinking about it now. She bought herself a Bible, and she's studying, and she's asking questions, which is more than I ever thought possible.
Amen.
And so something else in my life that you can take is that prayer is powerful.
Yes.
I always heard stories of wives who would pray for their husbands for 5 years, and they would finally come back to God. And I had been praying for my mom for about 13 years, and I was ready to be done. I mean, I thought, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not the person, or I'm doing something wrong, or God just whatever. I was coming up with all of these reasons as to why it wasn't happening. Well, after everything that happened, I can look back at all the times that I witnessed to my mom, and I can see the fruit that was growing from that. We so often look in the now. We're so worried about the present. Men's Bible study on Thursday, or actually I think it was Saturday morning. There was a verse in Proverbs talking about looking forward. And as humans, that's not our first instinct, is to look forward. We either look back at how good things were in the past, which is what the Israelites did, or the Hebrews did when they left Egypt. They immediately looked back and started thinking about and reminiscing about things that weren't true. So we either look back in the past and think about how better things were. We look in the now and worry about how things aren't going our way or how things aren't working. Or we look into the future and we worry about how this is going to work out.
Right.
So the Bible telling us to look forward is not a normal human thing to do. It's something that you have to actively do. You have to actively try. And for so long, I struggled with looking forward. I was looking at the present. I was looking at myself, and I was thinking about all of these horrible things that I did not like about myself. And so many of us get caught up in that. But if we look forward and we thank God for what He's going to do in the future, it'll change your perspective. About 2 years ago, I stopped praying that my mom and her whole family there would get saved and start going to church, and instead I started thanking Him that it was going to happen.
Amen. Good.
And I spent 11 years doing that, and then 2 years of praying that prayer, and this is happening.
Good. Amen.
We could all use a little shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Any sort of depression that I was going through could have been fixed if I just had a little shift in perspective.
Right.
That's been my life so far. And I still have a long ways to go, God willing. But the reason that I have come to Irwin Road Baptist Church to be under Pastor Anthony is because my mission is to someday start my own ministry where I can help depressed teenagers like myself. So often I got told that I was too young to feel the way that I did, and it only made it worse. They told me I was just being a teenager, it was just hormones. And some teenagers, maybe it is just hormones, but they don't need to be told that. They just want a friend. And
Right.
a little shift in perspective can go a really long way. But also, another thing that's extremely important is having a real relationship with God. You can't truly be happy if you don't have a relationship with God.
Yes.
The people who are around me, they see that I'm different, not because I'm happy, because of the material things that I have. They're happy, they see that I'm happy, and they actually don't know why. They look at me and they wonder why I'm different than they are. If we're having a tough day at work, and I'm smiling, and I'm still treating customers as if it was a great day at work, that confuses people.
Yeah.
Because the world is not a happy place.
That's right.
just open up the news app. I mean, the world is not a happy place. And really, the world doesn't want you to be happy at all. And so, like I said, just that little shift in perspective. And whatsoever you do it heartily as unto the Lord. And that's the mindset that I have to have if I'm having a tough day. It's just that little shift in perspective. I'm not doing it to make the people around me happy. I'm doing it so that God might shine through me while I'm doing it. And it works. It really works. This last job, or the job before the last job I had, I was able to lead every one of my managers and my coworkers to the Lord. Just because they saw how different I was. Just because they saw God shining through me. And that wasn't by my own power. I'm just a tool. And I'm a tool who's trying to be used as effectively as possible by the Lord.
Amen.
And so that's my mission. I went to summer camp last year, or actually this year I should say, and all of the messages were about the prodigal son. And I didn't really get anything out of those messages that I was supposed to. At the end of every message, we were supposed to write down a decision we were going to make. And it was a 5-day long camp. And after every single message, God was convicting me to reach out to Pastor Anthony and tell him that I wanted to come work under him. And so he said that he would pray about it, and then he came over to my house, and he said, when you texted me, I had just started praying that I would get some help. And all of the pieces just kind of came together with that. And it all happened within the space of just a few months. I was going to go to college. I was not planning on moving out of my parents' house until, a few years down the road. And then all of this happened, so I put college off to the side for now to join full-time ministry. And I'm excited. And I'm excited to be here with you guys. I hope that I can be a light to you guys. I hope that I can grow with y'all, and I hope that y'all can grow with me. And I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity. Not many people get the opportunity to work under a man as great as Pastor Anthony. You guys are very lucky. I'm very lucky to be a part of a church who's led by this man. And if you want to, I have one more passage I'd like to read to you guys in Psalm. It's going to be Psalm 34. Psalm chapter 34. And we're going to read verse 18 and 19. Psalm 34, 18 and 19. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all.
Amen.
Earlier I told you that my nightmares and things of that nature have actually gotten worse since I've gotten a better relationship with God. And that's because when you're a child of the King, you're an enemy of the devil.
Sure. Right.
And, this is something that weighs heavier on some days than others. And but that is my hill my mountain that I have to climb. Everybody in this room has a mountain that they have to climb, whether it be mental like mine, or if it's health, if it's family, if it's financial, if it's socially. There are so many different mountains that everybody has to climb. Everyone's different from each other. But we all serve the same God who has climbed the same mountains. And faith just the size of a grain of a mustard seed.
Yeah.
You don't even need the whole mustard seed. You can move mountains.
Yeah.
And so with God, anything is possible, and we can avoid those mountains completely. And I don't even see my nightmares or anything or my sleep as a mountain anymore. I just see it as something that I can relate to with other people who need help. And I have a heart for people. Everybody has a heart for people. It's just depending on what kind of people you have a heart for. My people are broken people, and those are the people that I want to help badly. And I was as broken as I could be when Pastor Anthony was in my life, and he helped me a lot. And so I know that by coming here, I'm going to learn how to help broken people, and that's what I want to do. The best thing that I hope that you can take away from what I said tonight is to never take judgment from someone you wouldn't take, or who wouldn't cheer for your success. Never take judgment from someone who wouldn't cheer for your success. That quote-unquote friend that I told you about, even if I had one, if he saw where I was today, he wouldn't be cheering for me. And so why would I take judgment from somebody who wouldn't cheer for my success? God will always cheer for your success louder than anybody here on earth. Any hope that I can help anyone and everyone that I can is a hope we're fighting for. And so that's what I'm here for, and that's my testimony, and I hope that I can help bring hope to anybody out there who is struggling with any kind of mountain that they feel like they can't climb over. Know that I did it, and I know what I did to do it, and I know what I should have done. And those are two different things. I don't want you to keep that to yourself. Give that all to God. When you give your life to God, it's not easy. You're going to have to give things up. A lot of people will, when they give their testimony, they're not wrong. But they will say that ever since I got saved, my life has been so much better and I've had so much more joy. But in reality, in order to have the best relationship with God that you can, you have to get rid of things that aren't necessarily wrong, but are hindering you from spending more time with Him.
Right.
And it's really awful in the moment. There are things that I wish I could go back to before I had this relationship with God. But I know that if I did, I would be far less happier than I am now. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. So I want to thank you guys for having me here, and I want to thank Pastor for allowing me to come here as well. I'm going to go ahead and pray, and then Pastor come up. God, I thank you for this night, and I thank you for bringing everybody to your house safely. And I thank you for speaking through me tonight. And I pray that anybody here who needs help will get the help that they need from you, God. And I pray that you would bring everybody home safely tonight and give them a good rest of their week.